Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about proposed federal budget cuts on nonprofit organizations that provide services to our communities. The CEO of Preferred Behavioral Health Group is standing by to discuss how cuts could impact the community. First, one New Jersey Assemblyman says our state stands at a fiscal crossroads, and now is the time for a more efficient government. Assemblyman Cody Miller is leading the charge with two proposals that he says would create a bipartisan commission that he says will modernize state agencies, cut bureaucratic red tape, and build a more transparent, responsive public sector. Assemblyman Cody Miller joins me now. Assemblyman, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Laura, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on today.
Oh, happy to have you. So you have described this moment in time as a pivotal moment for New Jersey's government. Can you talk us through and walk us through some of the key challenges that we're dealing with here in New Jersey? There's a structural budget deficit, potential loss of federal fundings that make reforms that you're talking about so urgent.
Yeah, so I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about a structural budget deficit. We really have to look at the size and scale of government in the state of New Jersey. And I recently introduced a bill that dealt with this with higher education institutions, looking at their governance and funding structures. And this is very similar. So I thought I would take it a step further by making sure that we do something that is going to look at the size and scale of government and the different departments and agencies that we have. Presently, we have 15 different departments and over 68 different agencies within the state of New Jersey. So this bill would really look at our overall structure and operations to determine, where we can see some changes, where we can see some cost savings, where there's some duplicity with some of the services that we provide. Is there a way to utilize technology to improve government efficiency and ensure that we're spending within our means, but we're also budgeting accordingly?
So there are two separate pieces of legislation. Let's start with the first one, Assembly Bill 5849. So that creates the New Jersey Government Restructuring and Modernization Commission. So can you
Correct.
talk a little bit about what that is, the inefficiencies or outdated systems in the executive branch that you're hoping the commission will address?
So that specific bill will really deal with doing somewhat of an audit of the different agencies and their operational functions to see, maybe there's duplication with the services that are provided. I know that sometimes with government, we have a tendency to be a little excessive, not saying that we are in this case. And this isn't always about cost savings and efficiency. It's also really about just looking at our operational structure. Does it make sense? When was the last time that we as a state actually looked at the different departments and agencies and determined if what we're actually doing is working? And this bill is so great because it'll bring together everybody to talk about our agencies and their operations. And it pulls together public servants, these individuals that represent these agencies, because we hear sometimes, maybe things aren't always working within a specific department or an agency, or sometimes we're tripping over one another, or different functions could be consolidated. So what's great about this is it brings everyone to the table to really figure out what the future of government looks like in the state of New Jersey and how we can seek to make some improvements to make us more responsive, to make us more effective, to streamline processes, to really talk about transforming government to work for people and ensuring that we're spending taxpayer dollars effectively and efficiently.
I think taxpayers like hearing that, but state employees, they might be worried when you say the word consolidation. So can you talk a little bit about the fear of perhaps layoffs and those who work for the state if they're concerned for their jobs?
Well, here's what I will say. We're not the federal government. We're not DOGE. And I think that was a cluster of all proportions, not even determining which resources should have been allocated and making cuts and taking a hatchet to the federal budget. I don't believe in that. And it specifically states in this bill that there would be no layoffs. It would be through attrition and retirements. So we're ensuring that we're not, cutting state civil servants who have worked their entire lives for state government and really provided vital services to people. I mean, that's not what this bill is about. This bill doesn't seek to cut employees or hurt them in any manner. If anything, this is different than most because it brings public employees to the table to say, hey, here's some things that we can change. Maybe these roles that we have in these specific agencies aren't applicable anymore. How can we reduce those costs? And I look at it this way. I work in higher education, and we recently did somewhat of a restructuring with our institution. Sometimes what you find is there's ways to consolidate roles and positions where you're saving money through health benefits, but you're also allowing employees upward progression because maybe they increase the responsibilities that they take on, which would include an additional increase in salary, a bump in salary to do those types of roles, but we're saving money on the health benefits costs.
Gotcha. So can you talk about the other piece of legislation, which is actually kind of moving to this red tape portal, and I don't want to make a red tape reduction portal. Can you talk a little bit about this legislation, how this portal would work, how it would empower businesses and people living in New Jersey to really kind of, it's about shaping a better regulatory environment?
So we hear from businesses all the time that it is cumbersome to do business and operate in the state of New Jersey because of the specific regulations. I can use specific examples with construction projects on state highways and dealing with the DEP. Not saying that what they're doing is incorrect, but we hear from commercial businesses and even dealing with some of these projects that are going to bring economic development to my region of the state, like South Jersey, where they consistently face these hurdles with applying for permits, with getting a response back from the different agencies, with sometimes them tripping over one another. So what this really will do is it will allow us to look at some of the regulations that we have in the state of New Jersey to say, hey, how can we make it more conducive for a business that wants to set up shop in the state of New Jersey? What challenges are nonprofits facing in the state where we can make processes a little bit simpler or easier? I use Pennsylvania as an example. Governor Josh Shapiro is doing a phenomenal job with trying to, I wouldn't say steal businesses from the state of New Jersey, but he's trying to make it more conducive for a business climate. And we're hearing from some businesses in the state of New Jersey that they may want to go to Pennsylvania because the regulatory environment is so much simpler than the state of New Jersey. And I think what's important with the red tape portal is it's going to allow businesses and stakeholders and those people who understand the issues that deal with this process to really have a say, to submit their comments and their feedbacks. And I think that is equally important right now because the regulatory environment that we experience in the state of New Jersey isn't always as conducive for businesses to operate. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that we have to blow things up. It just means how can we improve processes. And in the past, I understand that there was legislation that was moved prior to my time that dealt with sort of establishing a red tape commission. And unfortunately, that was vetoed by the governor. So my hope with this legislation is now that we have a new governor coming in, maybe we can really have a serious conversation about the regulatory environment in the state of New Jersey and what we can do, how we can bring people to the table to determine what works, what doesn't work, how we can streamline processes, how we can make things more efficient with approvals and getting the necessary things that they need from the state of New Jersey to move forward. That's the goal of this.
Yeah, part of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the NJEDA, deals or is supposed to deal with that, and they had a business action center, trying to attract. Are you working, and that's like a quasi-governmental agency, are you working with agencies like that as well when looking at this legislation? Because
Yes.
I know, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be the goal, to bring them to the table. And I know they have done a phenomenal job with providing grants and incentives to entice businesses in the state of New Jersey, but we would want to bring them to the table. And I think this goes back to the other bill as well that we talked about. How can we modernize government? What systems or programs can we implement in the state of New Jersey that would help streamline some of these processes for businesses to make it more conducive to operate in the state of New Jersey? And that's why I'm so thankful to pursue this legislation, because I really think it's going to bring everybody together so we can improve how government operates, so we can make sure that we're spending money efficiently, so we can ensure that we have a regulatory environment that is conducive to business and how we can benefit our residents and make sure that they have access to information and the business community does as well.
So both of these bills you talk about, they emphasize collaborative, bipartisan approach. In today's polarized climate, how confident are you that these commissions can come together and agree to meaningful reforms? Because again, if you look at the national level, the Republicans and DOGE, but what you're talking about is not necessarily the same, but it's the same end goal is about becoming more efficient. So how do you get past all that bipartisan bickering?
Yeah, it's not at all like DOGE. And I want to be clear. I think we have become, unfortunately, so polarized as a society where we can't have these open and honest conversations. I will say that I have worked with colleagues across the aisle, and I know that our Assembly Speaker, Craig Coughlin, has done the same thing. New Jersey, I consider, it has a possibility of going back between Republican administrations and Democratic administrations. And what I've seen, at least on the state level, is we're not as politically polarized as some of the national stuff. Look, the national issues, while they impact us, it's all noise. We really got to get back to the basics. How can we work together? Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care what your party affiliation is. We all have the same goal and objective. We want to see the state thrive. We want to see our residents succeed. We want to have a good business climate. And to my colleagues across the aisle, I know we're dealing with some serious issues with the utility crisis and everything. I just want to urge them all, look, we're first and foremost New Jerseyans, right? That's who we are. We have to stop using the party labels as a means as to why we can't work together with one another. The general public wants us to work together, and I have faith, based on the politics and the nature of the state of New Jersey, with different administrations being DNR, that we can truly work together collaboratively to do this in a bipartisan manner.
Yeah, and not DNR, do not resuscitate Democrats and Republicans.
Yes.
But just final thoughts, though, right? I didn't know if you were playing off words, but just final thoughts, though, on the realistic ability to make this happen. Even if it doesn't, do you feel optimistic that you've at least opened the door for the conversation to start?
I do. And that was the goal behind this. It's to start the conversation. I mean, I'm a freshman legislator. I've been in office a year and I think 6 months now. I don't have all the answers, but I think as a new generation of leader in the state of New Jersey, who is one of the youngest members of the legislature, this starts the conversation topic. And as someone who considers himself a millennial, I know that most of us are tired of the bickering. They're tired of the polarization. We want solutions. We want people to sit down at a table and actually work out these issues. And now I've started that conversation.
Well, Assemblyman Cody Miller, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and we look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Governor Phil Murphy, joined by former Governor Chris Christie and Lieutenant Governor Tahisha Way, unveiled the official portrait of New Jersey's first Lieutenant Governor, Kim Godano, at the State House.
As New Jersey's first Lieutenant Governor and our Secretary of State, you served for 8 years with tireless dedication to the people and communities of this state.
The ceremony, attended by the former Lieutenant Governor, along with family, friends, and former staff, celebrated her 8 years of service from 2010 to 2018. In August 2023, following the passing of Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, Governor Murphy announced plans to commission portraits for all former Lieutenant Governors, establishing a new tradition. Governor Murphy praised Godano's dedication, saying she served with distinction and commitment to New Jersey's families. Lieutenant Governor Way highlighted Godano's historic role and her work as Secretary of State.
She selflessly put people before politics and helped us hit the ground running on behalf of our constituents.
From the people that I did consider, I asked advice of a longtime friend of mine. I said, what do you think I should do here? And he said, pick the person you like the most. And it was the best advice I got, and that's exactly what I did. I picked the person that I liked the most.
Former Governor Chris Christie noted Godano's efforts to reduce bureaucracy and boost economic growth. The portrait was painted by North Caldwell artist Liza Amir. It captures Godano's strength and grace and will hang permanently in the Lieutenant Governor's suite. Godano expressed her gratitude, calling the honor humbling.
I want to thank and give my deepest gratitude to the people of New Jersey. I know this was not in the budget at the time Sheila passed. I know everybody had to scrimp and save to find the money to make this portrait. I want to thank the people of New Jersey because they paid for it. The taxpayers paid for this. And it's special to me to serve for that. It has been a privilege of a lifetime to have served for them and with them.
It is only fitting that we recognize your lasting contributions with a portrait that will stand the test of time, and I'm confident that your example will continue to inspire all who see this portrait in these halls as they follow in your footsteps.
Thanks for staying with New Jersey Politics. I'm Laura Jones. Today we're exploring how proposed federal budget cuts could impact New Jersey's nonprofits. Dr. Tara Chalakani, CEO of Preferred Behavioral Health Group, joins us now to discuss the consequences for mental health and addiction services. Dr. Chalakani, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Likewise, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, your recent opinion piece in NJ.com emphasized that federal grant cuts are more than just numbers. They are affecting real people. So can you share an example of how these funds that support New Jerseyans at Preferred Behavioral Health Group are impacting real people?
For sure. So in our organization alone, Laura, we're serving almost 30,000 New Jerseyans a year. And these are unduplicated individuals who are receiving life-saving mental health and substance use services. And I know, we're hearing a lot of stories in the news about abuse, but the people that we are serving are truly disabled, struggling, or children. So there is no abuse or waste happening on our end. And these cuts will have detrimental impact to people who rely on federal funding to supplement, whether it is their minimum wage income or their current disability payments.
Yeah, so your organization, close to 30,000 individuals, 70 programs. So can you talk a little bit about what kinds of services are at most risk if these federal grants like these are cut?
So we're looking at services like housing and residential and homelessness services, vital clinical services like traditional outpatient, which could be impacted, by Medicaid cuts, but also substance use programs, day treatment programs, in-community supports, school-based services. I mean, it runs the gamut. It runs the entire lifespan. I mean, we are not just providing one-on-one services. We treat the whole person. We're looking at social determinants of health, like food insecurity, housing insecurity. We have critical staff on hand that link these individuals to services. So it's really the whole person that's being impacted, not just addiction and mental health treatment.
When you see the headlines, when a tragedy happens, no matter what it is, a school shooting, young people taking their lives, what have you, people look and they try and make sense of it. And were there signs? Well, there were signs. And we talk about the importance of mental health. New Jersey already struggles with a shortage of mental health and addiction treatment providers. I mean, there are people who need services or who are on wait lists. So can you talk a little bit about how these proposed cuts worsen something that's already in a crisis and what it means for families and communities?
Well, you touched on it accurately. There is a shortage of providers for a myriad of reasons. We took a big hit during COVID because staff that used to work in organizations like ours now are independently employed and can stay home and work online. So the in-community help, there's really a dearth there of staff. And the funding as it is right now without cuts isn't sufficient for us to pay competitive wages and to cover just overhead costs like providing health insurance and keeping the lights turned on. So if we are impacted by further cuts, there's going to be longer wait lists, which it trickle into so many things: school performance and behavioral issues for children. Mental health issues is the leading cause of a drain on local law enforcement. You know, there are people in the community that are struggling, and they often fall into the hands of the law because there's nowhere else to bring them or no one else to deal with them in the community. So it just has a ripple effect that branches into every bit of the way we live in our community.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking to hear that. When somebody's struggling with mental health, if there aren't the services available, then it falls into the hands of law enforcement, and they're bound by the law. They can't always take into account, you know, the emotional impact and the other circumstances that some of these people are living under.
Sure. And I mean, the local law enforcement and state law enforcement, they attend a myriad of trainings, but they're not social workers, they're not therapists, and that's not what they're out in the communities to do. But this is the ripple effect and the strain that these cuts will put on other areas. Just like in schools, if children can't access the care that they need due to federal cuts, whether it's grants or Medicaid, they're going to be taxing the system in school. They're going to have behavioral issues. They're going to drain the resources of teachers and guidance counselors. So, like I said, it's far-reaching. And one of the reasons why I feel like there's this misperception and misunderstanding of mental health is that health is health. We are one being, we're one person, and the stigma that is still attached to mental health and addictions is really damaging, because an addiction is a medical issue. It's a mental health issue. It's an illness. It's a disease. And we treat it as if someone has a choice and they can just stop. But if we change our perception, hopefully we can prioritize mental health care in budgets and not make these dramatic cuts that will really impact us to a devastating extent.
Yeah. I mean, why, you know, before I get to the next question, why is that such a hard barrier to break, that stigma attached with it? You hit the nail on the head. It's an illness. It is a disease. You can't help these things. This isn't something people choose.
Correct. And you know, there's a whole host of reasons, Laura. It's fear, it's shame, it's you know, like I said, we have this pervasive stigma in our society, and it almost sometimes is perceived as some sort of failure, but it isn't. It's no different than if your family is predisposed to high blood pressure or diabetes. It's a chronic condition that needs to be managed. And we are the types of providers that are in the community managing and helping people to thrive and survive. And our mission is to change lives and save lives every day. And we do that, but we need this much needed and important funding to do so.
Yeah, so you talk about the strain on state and local government if federal funding is cut. So when it comes to New Jersey, do you believe New Jersey has the resources to fill the gap? Are we at risk of seeing, I think you called it a service desert in some areas?
Well, I mean, even though there are so many New Jerseyans that go without care and are struggling, we do have a great state compared to others in our country. And Governor Murphy has made mental health a priority, and we have received some generous funding. But if the federal budget is cut, that impacts New Jersey. So, I mean, we will suffer if the feds do not provide us with continued sustenance to keep these programs going.
Yeah. So what are you able to do? What can be done to make your voices heard?
Well, to anyone that's watching, make sure you reach out to your local elected officials. Let them know how imperative it is that you continue to receive these services, and that cuts would be devastating. I know I do it. I have my staff doing it on a regular basis. We need our voices heard, and we need to humanize the stories, because I think it's very easy to make decisions when you have no personal or lived experience, or if you're not hearing stories of how impactful our nonprofit behavioral health services are in New Jersey and across the country.
I mean, it's hard to even fathom that people, I mean, because I don't know anybody who isn't impacted somehow. Teens, kids, they are more stressed and they have more issues, more pressures than you and I ever even imagined when we were young. So it's hard to believe that, people aren't understanding the significance and the gravity and the depth of the issues that are out there. Just kids having to live their lives on social media alone.
Sure. I mean, these are people. These are not line items on a budget. And we have to understand that, a cut this detrimental could end someone's life if they cannot access critical services.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts that if you had the ears of lawmakers, anybody listening, making those decisions, what would your message be?
To please think twice before making these cuts, and to spend some time, to take time to visit an organization like Preferred Behavioral Health Group, get to know who's providing the care, see who's impacted, because I do believe that it would make a world of difference in perception and in the minds of decision makers.
And if you are somebody who needs those services and are concerned about it, any advice that you can give them, places, resources that they can go right now?
Well, we are serving all of New Jersey, so please reach out to us at preferredbehavioral.org. And if we cannot help you, we certainly will connect you to someone who can.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's always so good to see you and speak with you.
My pleasure. Likewise, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's going to do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.